On today's Locked On Thunder podcast, ranking the NBA play-in teams, ranking the entire West. What's the best series to watch in this first round, and will there be upsets in the NBA playoffs?
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, media member, and beat writer for Thunder on SI, Rylan Stiles. Follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod. Email the show, LOThunderPod@gmail.com. On today's show, we're diving into ranking the play-in teams that OKC could face, ranking the entire Western Conference, and breaking down the NBA playoff bracket with Michael Martin at Michael on Sports on social media. Let's Talk Thunder on YouTube. Michael, the regular season is already over. How are you feeling now?
Zero dark 30. We're in playoff mode, Rylan. Play-in mode first as the little, preamble appetizer, but we're right around the corner from the real basketball that everybody's been waiting for.
Yeah, this is going to be like the high stakes, meaningful, granular takeaways after every night, living and dying by every possession that people have been waiting for. We've been waiting for, because it's been an interesting into this season where everything was kind of on ice for Oklahoma City. So you never wanted to get too high or too low, because ultimately it didn't have the ripple effects that, of course, playoff games will have. And so that does change the equation a little bit for how you talk about this team, how you experience this team. That's going to be a very fun challenge for everybody involved, but it starts with the NBA play-in tournament that the Thunder have avoided, but they still are keeping an eye on, because they've gotten the best record in the NBA in the Western Conference. So they can play the Kings, Mavericks, Warriors, or Grizzlies in the NBA play-in. And if the season, of course, plays out the way that we think in terms of chalk for the play-in tournament, the Warriors would go face Houston, and then it'd be Memphis against the winner of Dallas and Sacramento, as you can see on the screen with the bracket. But we'll have predictions at the end. Let's start with just ranking the four teams. I think that number one, pretty obvious for me, but I'm curious if you have a differing opinion. The Golden State Warriors are the best playing team in this entire equation, and their top 10 in net rating in the last 15 games, their top 10 in net rating in the last 10 games, whatever kind of metric you want to use since that Jimmy Butler trade. They're just an awesome team. It just so happens that in this jumbled Western Conference, somebody had to be in the play-in tournament, and the star power of Steph and Jimmy is something that you rarely, if ever, have seen before in an 8 seed. So I think that the Thunder should really want the Warriors to take care of business on Tuesday.
Yeah, everyone should put on their Warriors pom-poms for that. Just take care of business against the Grizzlies. And I'm right there with you. They're the best play-in team on either side of the bracket, East or West, and it's not really close. I mean, you have the firepower. Steph's the best player of any play-in team, either side of the bracket. Jimmy's the best second option. Draymond's the best third option. They have all this sort of just experience built up and just championship equity built up between those guys, and along with Steve Kerr. They have a lot of chemistry. They know how to play with each other. Just a really fun, deep team, and they're not the team. I'd still take the Thunder over them, but it's one of those things where we've talked about it before, where you just don't want to have as many of those battle scars going round by round, where you want to hopefully beat some of these teams in a sweep or a gentleman's sweep. You don't want to have to go 6 or 7 games all the way throughout the bracket here, but I definitely say Golden State 1 and then Memphis 2. I think basically just what the standings are playing out right now, basically just tell me what the rankings of these teams should be, which is probably lame to say. It's not as cool to sort of mix it up, but I think the rankings and the standings have things going right now.
Yeah, I think that with Golden State, it's a more challenging path, and there's this weird mentality of, like, of course the Thunder themselves are not scared or worried about the Warriors. They'd still be the favorites, but why make your life harder than it has to be? Work smarter, not harder, and avoiding a team the caliber of Golden State, who, again, in the last 10 games has the 4th best net rating in the NBA and has really found their groove for the most part with Steph and Jimmy and Draymond, all guys who have had illustrious playoff careers and big moments for better or worse in the postseason, and the experience and the coach The Warriors are a clear-cut number one. I would lean Memphis number two, even though they're in a bit of disarray. I mean, they fired their coach. They lost Jalen Wells, sadly, because he was a heck of a player this season. He would have provided, I think, an interesting wrinkle in the playoffs, but they've lost him. But at the end of the day, you can say more for Memphis than other teams because they still have Ja Morant, Desmond Bane, Jaren Jackson Jr., and then this weird Zach Edey fit that I don't think could stay on the floor against Oklahoma City, but at least they have something of a curveball to throw at you. So, like, the top-end talent on Memphis's roster, you at least have to respect. So I think that series against Memphis would be, at worst for the Thunder, a 5-game series, likely be a sweep. It's just that they're a team who, at least if you squinted, you could see, okay, what if you get 2 great Ja games? Then all of a sudden, maybe you can extend this to a 6-game series. That's still not all that competitive. So Memphis at number 2. And then my number 3, really the first time and the only time that I will differ with the standings, is the Dallas Mavericks at number 3. It's more about the Kings than the Mavericks, but for the Mavericks' sake, they do have Anthony Davis, who, as you saw against the Hawks a couple weeks ago, is still capable, despite battling injury, to reach back and get his fastball and can have a big game. He is a really interesting big to have to defend for Oklahoma City, even though they fixed their size concerns. He can create some matchup problems still. And then you just have PJ Washington walking into the Paycom Center and feeling good. And Klay Thompson feeling good. He's had big shots in the playoffs before. He's hit big shots in OKC before. My problem with the Mavericks, who's going to quarterback that team? Like, a big reason why PJ Washington feels good and a big reason why Klay Thompson killed the Thunder years ago is because they had a quarterback who could set them up and get them in good spots. And to me, Dallas does not have anyone who can be a table setter for those 3 main guys. So ultimately, the series would not be as competitive as last year, of course, and it would not be something that the Thunder are in any looming danger. It's just that I would trust AD and PJ to give the Thunder more of a run than I would Sacramento.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. I mean, it's the same thing that you're saying about Dallas. Just there's zero ball handling, and you have zero ball handling against a team like the Thunder who want to give you a lot of full court pressure anyways. That's just not going to bode well for you. Anthony Davis is a matchup nightmare for most teams in the league, and this Thunder team, where we've talked about it before, where Hartenstein's good individual defender, doesn't match up with AD well. Chet, same thing, doesn't match up with AD well, but it's hard to let AD score if he can't get the ball because the Thunder are stealing it and going the opposite way. And then Sacramento, I'll agree with you and put them 4-2. It's just, at least they have more healthy contributing guys. I think that the Dallas is a more well-rounded, better team, but health is a major factor. And then as for Memphis, like you said, I think this Thunder team would just blow them out because they just seem like they're in disarray. They're sort of in the same boat that like Phoenix was a couple weeks ago, where it's just like, how soon can this season end? Like, we're kind of just ready to go home. And to that point that we were making earlier, like, the Celtics last year went through a really cakewalk, easy schedule where they beat Atlanta in the first round, an injured Cleveland team in the second round, and the Pacers in the conference finals, and didn't face a real team till the finals. Everybody clowned them and talked about their cupcake path, but like now a year later, people don't really talk about that, and that's one of those things that like Brian Windhorst always talks about from ESPN. Winning a championship means you don't have to say you're sorry. So if the Thunder like might be cooler, might be more fun to put on a t-shirt as your resume of like they beat the Warriors and they beat the Nuggets and they beat the Lakers and the Celtics, whatever. But all that really matters is you end up with a championship. So I'm going to take the easy ones where we can get them. And if they can play Memphis in the first round and beat them in 4 or 5 games while they watch the Clippers and the Nuggets battle it out, like that's something you're going to take 10 times out of 10.
Yeah, and then the Sacramento Kings just, to me, they're a carbon copy of New Orleans of last year, where maybe they can make one game interesting. Like, you remember the game 1 against the Pelicans where CJ had the shot that could have gotten New Orleans a win, and then it was uncompetitive from there on out, and they got swept. It was the second sweep in Thunder history. This is going to play out the exact same way. Maybe down there in their old barn, their crowd's into it, and Levine can hit a big shot, and they can win a game. But that's where the journey ends. I mean, just like for the most of their history, they're an uninspiring team. We've already seen Jonas Valanciunas played off the floor a year ago against OKC. Blake Monk won't be ready to start the series and might not be able to come back at all in the series. So it's just a non-starter to me to even think that the Kings would be able to get more than a game against OKC, and I would pick a sweep against OKC. And then additionally, I think that would be like one of the only series that would be exclusively on NBA TV, probably for the best team in the NBA. But that's kind of where we're at on the play. And so ultimately, what we've learned here, just root for the Warriors on Tuesday and throw caution to the wind and make sure that they head over to Houston and they're able to play that 2-7 matchup. But coming up, let's rank the rest of the teams in the West. Who gives the Thunder the biggest chase out West? But first, I want to say right now, my good friends over at Hungry Root, go check out Hungry Root today because spring is here and you're busier than ever between work, family, and everything going on. Who has time for grocery shopping and meal prepping? That's why you got to use Hungry Root. It makes eating healthy, delicious meals simple and stress-free. Hungry Root is like having your own personal shopper and nutritionist wrapped into one. They take care of grocery shopping and meal planning. They offer personalized recommendations based upon your tastes and goals. I think that Healthy Root is great because you can get the meals together in 15 minutes or less. It gives you more time to do what you need to do. So take advantage of this exclusive deal. Get 40% off your first box plus a free item in every box for life by going to hungryroot.com/LockedInNBA to use code LockedInNBA. That's hungryroot.com/LockedInNBA. Use code LockedInNBA for $40 off and a lifetime free item at Hungry Root. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Joining us today is Michael Martin. Let's talk Thunder on YouTube at Michael on Sports. Michael, let's just put the Thunder in the one column, and we're ranking these teams based upon who gives the Thunder the biggest threat. We've worked our way all the way up to the play-in. Now, let's just say we have 10, 9, and 8. Is Golden State in that 7 line, or are you going to move them up in terms of challenges for OKC?
I'll say I'll move them up. Go ahead.
So who's going to be your 7 with Golden State moving up?
In terms of teams that would challenge the Thunder, I have started leaning back on some of my trepidation for the Wolves. I just think that matchup is a little bit less costly. We've seen small ball really kill that team, and I just don't think that they would have the guys to match up with this Thunder team. I think that you would see the Thunder funnel a lot of things to Julius Randle. As much as the Grizzlies would give the Thunder some problems with their length against Shea, I think Anthony Edwards, you would just see the Thunder just sell out completely to not let him do anything, and you would see a lot of Julius Randle, Rudy Gobert, Mike Conley, guys like that, and just go, you guys beat us. So I don't know. I think the Wolves have been like a formidable opponent this year, but I think that in a playoff series, it would be a little bit different, especially just the Julius Randle factor, where he's been one of the worst playoff performers in recent memory in the last decade or so. And I think the Thunder would really, really go at him. And we've seen Finch experiment, whenever the Thunder lost in overtime here, where he benched Anthony Edwards for a lot of time. But I don't know if that's sustainable throughout a 7-game series, and I think the Thunder would overwhelm them. And just more so than that, I just have more respect for the Warriors and the Wolves.
So then, I really am a big proponent of the Naz Reid lineup being something that can give the Thunder a bit of trepidation. But the Warriors are also very formidable. Somebody has to go in that 7 line. I'm still not against someone putting Houston in this line right here, because I think that Houston, at its core, is trying to just muddy up a game and get a game tight late in the fourth quarter. And then guess what? The Thunder are the only team on the either side that has an actual number one option, has an actual score. So for me, I would put Houston at 7 and then move Golden State up to 6. And then that would take us to having the Timberwolves at 5.
Yeah, I'd say that I have the Wolves and the Warriors and the Rockets mismatch, where I have the Rockets just right above that at 6, and I have the Warriors at 5 for a lot of those same reasons that you mentioned. But there's just this weird thing with just how overwhelmingly athletic this Rockets team is. I think they could give the Thunder some problems, and just a fearlessness in this matchup for whatever reason that the Rockets just have, where it reminds me of Rocky, where it was Mr. T shaking in a basement just looking at the picture of Rocky, where he's just thinking about it all day, and Rocky's not really thinking about it. He ends up sort of getting got, and I think that's something that could happen with this Thunder team, where I don't think they'd lose, but the Rockets having sort of a laser focus for this one team, where the Thunder are just looking at the bigger picture. I think this Rockets team is still a few years away, and like you mentioned, they don't have a closer. They're still a trade away from a guy like Devin Booker or whoever they're going to get to be their real number one. But at the same time, I think that they just have a lot of depth pieces and sort of this mental edge with a guy like Ime Udoka at the helm that I think could give this Thunder just a little bit more cause for concern than the Wolves.
So hit me with your top four from 4 to 1, and you can explain as you go if you want to, but just kind of your 4 to 1 in terms of who can challenge the Thunder.
So I mentioned the Warriors at 4. I'm actually going to bump them up to 3. I'll go with the Clippers at. We got. The Nuggets are still in there. Sorry, I was looking at the Thunder at 1. I'll put the Warriors at 4 for a lot of those reasons that we mentioned, and just they like to go small. There's not many teams that can go small better than the Thunder, whether it's Chet at the 5 or Dub at the 5. I think you would give them a lot of real issues because they don't really have anybody to guard Shea. I mean, Gary Payton's going to try his best. I don't think he matches up well with him. I don't think Jimmy Butler does well either. I think the Thunder have enough wings and size to throw at guys like Steph and Jimmy to really slow them down and wear them down over the course of a series. Hartenstein and Chet, like their bigs versus Looney or Draymond units, I think could give them some trouble. And we go to 3. I think that's probably where the Nuggets fall, where Jokic is the biggest matchup concern that I have, but outside of him and Murray, I just don't have a lot of fear in a lot of their other guys. Like Michael Porter Jr. is going to do what he wants and do what he does. Russell Westbrook, I think, is going to be a real disadvantage for this Nuggets team come playoff time because teams are just not going to really guard him as much, and just Russ, love him to death, has not been great in the playoffs recently. And I think Jokic, if you can just make him a scorer exclusively and just say, knock yourself out, which we've talked about off the pod a lot, comparing it to that Bucks-Nets series a while ago with Durant, where the Bucks just said, like, knock yourself out, score 60 a game. If you can do that every game and beat us, fine. He almost did it. I don't think Jokic has that mindset or that mind frame to do that, so I don't think that's something he's really wanting a big part of. At the Clippers too, maybe it's recency bias, but they've been playing some really, really good basketball. Kawhi's a guy that, like, you have a really tough time matching up with the Thunder. Like, Lou Dort's one of the better perimeter defenders, if not the best in the league, but he's too tall for Dort and he's too big for Dub. And then you have a guy like Zubac who can really maul guys on the boards. Like, he's even tossed guys like Hartenstein around. Playoff Harden, less concerned, but Kawhi, if he's right, is a really, really big deal. And then number 1's the Lakers, which that might be some more recency bias. We just saw the Thunder spank them after the Lakers spanked the Thunder. But when you have 2 primary ball handlers like that, if not 3, with Reeves, Luka, and LeBron, who can just pick and roll you to death, isolate you to death against a lot of your bigs, and control the pace and the tempo of the game, I think that's something I'd be really concerned about, as well as just like this flighty 3-point shooting that they've had recently just going against the Thunder. But I'm curious what you have to say, because I think there's a lot of options and a lot of orders you can go in.
Yeah, I think that the general tiers would be the same for everyone, but the order of which you'd put them, if you had to really go 1 through whatever, is susceptible to flip-flopping. I think that the Lakers are number 1 with the bullet. Like, I don't think it's recency bias. I think it's a Luka problem, and it's just still crazy that Dallas waived the right to have the Luka problem, but it's like this defense, this Thunder defense is historically great. It is awesome. You can't take anything away from this Thunder defense. But whenever you put multiple ball handlers on the floor, and specifically Luka Doncic, then you're caught between a rock and a hard place, because the strategy against Jokic of just saying, hey, let him go score 100 points, and if he does it, he does it. Like, that's fine, especially against Jokic, because Jokic is fairly uncomfortable as a go-to scorer, and his game really is set up by the ability to play make for his teammates. Luka's an all-time great scorer, and he's an all-time great passer. So you could say, hey, wave the white flag and let Luka go score 80. He probably would, but at least his teammates wouldn't go crazy. Then you could say, well, let's just shut down Luka. Then he passes out to his teammates who are wide open, and then they do go crazy in that scenario. It's just this headache problem to deal with. And, oh, yeah, Austin Reeves is really good. Oh, yeah, they have the best player in the world in terms of like the history of the NBA with LeBron James. And, oh, yeah, they have guys like Dorian Finney-Smith, who's hit big shots, Gabe Vincent, who's hit big shots in the playoffs, Rui Hachimura, who's coming on really well. And then the Jackson Hayes thing, to me, hello, is anybody listening? Luka Doncic took Dwight Powell to the Western Conference Finals. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They could put you at center with Luka Doncic, Michael, and you would go to the Western Conference Finals. The fact that Dallas just waived the right to this thing is insane to me. It's the Lakers number 1 with a bullet. And then I go Denver at 2 because of just the reverence for Jokic being the best player in the world right now. Throughout the history of the NBA, that's pretty much all you've ever needed to get far in the playoffs, is the best player in the world. those teams typically go far. And I think that because of the ceiling, right, of like if you get a good Murray playoff run, and if you get Michael Porter Jr. and Christian Brown knocking in threes, then all of a sudden they're a completely different team. And so that respect for that possibility still puts them at 2 for me. And then I do have the Clippers, who is another big F, because if you get them fully healthy, then they probably should be at number 2 the way that you have them. But it's just hard to bank on them being fully healthy as much as I want it to happen. It's just a basketball fan. I think it'd be awesome if we saw a full playoff series from this team, because they are fun to watch. The fact that they've made James Harden fun to watch is pretty interesting. They have Ty Lue on the sidelines as well to create some interesting chess matches. So like that's how I would order the top 3. But I think that that's the tier. I think that's very comfortably the top tier in the West right now.
Yeah, it's the Lakers 1, and after that, you can just sort of argue with me and give me the case by case basis of the Nuggets or the Clippers, and even down to the Warriors a bit of just like, well, this is the second best team, and you'd probably get me to agree at some point because those teams are really, really solid. But at the same time, they're also incredibly flawed, and they have very obvious flaws that you can point out. But I'm right there with you. Lakers are number 1. I don't know if I could play center. I don't think I have necessarily the vertical spacing that a guy like Luka would need. But I could definitely pop out and shoot a couple threes. But yeah, I'm right there with you in terms of like Clippers are definitely 2 or 3. And then you have the Nuggets just because of the Jokic factor, where best player in the world, best player in a series can change anything. We've seen that a lot with guys like Jokic, guys like Luka, guys like LeBron, and we could see that in a series with Jokic. And then the Warriors just like can't quit them. They're sort of like the Spurs of the past, where it's like, I am going to keep betting on the Warriors until I'm the last one standing and they're not in the playoffs anymore. But I just have a lot of trust in their ecosystem and just sort of the championship equity they have throughout their roster and organization.
The Mavericks really just traded away a guy who only needs a warm body to go to the Western Conference Finals. More on the playoffs coming up, including what the best series to watch is. And are we going to see some upsets in the NBA playoffs? We didn't get them in the NCAA tournament. Maybe we were saving all the Cinderella stories for right now. But first one, say right now, but our good friends over at OpenPhone. Check out OpenPhone, because if you're running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. Think about it. When was the last time you had a service emergency? If the first person didn't answer, did you wait? Probably not. That's why you need OpenPhone, because OpenPhone is the #1 business phone system designated to streamline and scale your customer communications all through an app on your phone or computer. I think that it's great because you don't need to carry 2 phones around. With OpenPhone, you can manage business calls and text on one app, whether it's on the desktop or on the go with your phone. If you can really think about this, you get an AI call transcript summary that will save you time and follow-ups to ensure you never lose track of a customer interaction and an opportunity to grow your business. OpenPhone is offering my listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. That's OPENPHONE.com/LockedOnNBA. And if you're switching from another service, OpenPhone will even port your existing numbers over at no additional charge. OpenPhone, no missed calls, no missed customers. We're back on the Lockdown Thunder podcast, on the Lockdown Podcast Network, your teams every day. Joining us today is Michael Martin at Michael on Sports. Let's talk Thunder. Michael, when you look at this playoff bracket, what jumps out to you as the best series both in the Western Conference and the Eastern Conference?
We'll start with the West. Most interesting, I'm thinking of the Clippers and the Nuggets. I think that's going to be super, super interesting because some of it is we have rooting interest of like who's going to win that and play the Thunder in the next round, but just Kawhi versus a team that doesn't really have a great matchup for him. I mean, Aaron Gordon's going to try his best, but we'll really see. James Harden, I mean, if you put Aaron Gordon on Kawhi, who's really guarding Harden, I guess it's Christian Brown. And then it comes down to really Jokic versus Kawhi in a series, which I'd be very, very interested to see. And on the other side, I think this is the one that a lot of people are taking anyways, and that's the Knicks versus the Pistons, where it seems like everyone has gone from like the contrarian pick of like the Knicks over the Pistons, where like, wouldn't that be wild, to now it's a very realistic possibility. I think that'd be a really big dogfight series between two teams. Or you're definitely going to get some altercations with a Tibbs team and then Isaiah Stewart on the other side. But really interested in both those matchups. But what are you thinking?
Yeah, I think that the Pacers and Bucks series is only saved by the fact that the Cleveland and the Celtics have to play somebody, and no matter who they draw, it's probably going to be terrible. So that's going to elevate them to not be the worst series on the board. But the best series on the board I just can't quit the Lakers Timberwolves because these are two teams who I've propped up, and I think that there's so many interesting wrinkles because Julius Randle is an interesting playoff player. Theoretically, you could see a pathway for him to have a really successful series. You could also see a pathway where it doesn't look as good. Rudy Gobert is an awesome player, and I think that he takes way too much heat. However, in a series like this, where like the Lakers' best lineup will include Luka, LeBron, Reeves, Dorian, and Rui. Not a single big man on the floor. In a lineup like that, where you can take Rudy away from the rim, or punish him for staying at the rim, it's a tough situation for him to stay on the floor, not by his own not by his own consequence of like him being a bad player, just a bad matchup. So then how much do you want to go to Naz Reid? How much do you want to go to McDaniels being like the small ball? Like, what do you want to do there if you're Chris Finch? I think that both coaches are willing to explore things. I think that both coaches are willing to try things we've never seen before from them in the regular season, in the playoffs, to where that chess match is always interesting to me. I think they get a great pick with Clippers Nuggets, because if these two teams are both fully healthy for the 7-game series, I could see that going the distance, and I don't really know who should be favored. Again, I still lean with the best player in the world, so I'll still lean Denver, but it's going to be super fun to watch. And then, can this Pistons team be ready? I mean, can they be ready in their first ever run? Like, we have a lot of good first-round series to watch for, to varying degrees. I think that the play-in will make, if whoever the Warriors play, I think that will be an interesting series to throw on top of it. But the other play-in results will make those series just kind of nonchalant, so to say. Like, the Magic and Hawks have no chance against the Celtics. The Bulls and Heat and Magic and Hawks have no chance against, or shouldn't have a chance against the Cleveland Cavaliers. It's like those two series are not worth watching. The Thunder should be able to beat down whoever is not named the Warriors that wins the 8th seed. And then the Rockets and Warriors, though, could be fun. So, like, ultimately, I think that we will have a really good first round of this NBA playoffs. And with that first round, do you foresee any upsets? Because upsets are kind of hard to come by in the NBA because, it's a 7-game series. It lends itself to the best team usually winning. Is there anything that jumps off the page to you right now? It's like, okay, I could see this underdog, so to say, winning.
I had to squint a little bit, so I'm not saying this with my full chest of like, I believe this is an upset that's going to happen, because first of all, I just went back and just dissed the Wolves for a little bit there, but it is about matchups, and you mentioned the interest. I'm right there with you with the Wolves and the Lakers, and I think there is a potential for an upset there just because what if Gobert is playable enough because you can get enough lobs? What if they go super big with Gobert and Reed and Randall and you get whatever is it? Sorry. You get Anthony Edwards and you go Jaden McDaniels, that's who I was thinking of, and you just go massive against those guys and really just suffocate them defensively. I think that could be really interesting and just make it an up and down game because this Lakers team does not really want to run and keep pace with some of these younger, faster teams. And then, of course, you have the Luka versus Anthony Edwards factor. You have LeBron in the playoffs is always going to be really, really interesting. But I think that's one that I would point to of just like, I'm not saying it's going to be an upset, but I wouldn't just be stunned if it were to go another way and we're going into Game 6 and the Wolves are up 3-2.
Yeah, I could see the world of that upset coming to be. And I think that, it's kind of why we had him in our conversations of the best series. If I had to pick an upset, and 4 or 5, it's tough to call it an upset. It's like I want to stay clear of that. And then, like, would you consider the Warriors an upset over the Rockets? Like, even though the seeding is 2-7, like, does that feel like an upset to you? Like, that's kind of what I'm struggling with before I say, yeah, there's going to be an upset. Because if you do consider that an upset, I would say that the Warriors, I would pick them to beat the Rockets in a series.
Yeah, I almost went counterintuitive and said it would be the upset for the number 2 to beat the 7. If the Rockets beat the Warriors, that would be the upset, just because of the championship experience that this Warriors team has and the lack of experience from this Rockets team. But this Rockets team, like, as sort of chaotic and bipolar as they are, like, their athleticism, I think, could just really overwhelm this Warriors team. So I don't know. I don't think that it would be a major upset if the Rockets beat them, but I also don't think it could be this could be a 4-5 series is the way I would put it. And I don't think anyone would be really, really surprised about it. I think it'd go either way, but I wouldn't call it an upset for the Warriors to go beat down a younger team.
Yeah, that's That's very true. So I guess it's kind of up to your imagination if we're going to see any upsets, because it's just your own personal feeling of how much that you value these teams. Now, Michael, who's your pick to win the NBA Finals? This is your last time before the playoffs actually tip off. So I want to get you on the record. Who's your NBA Finals pick?
I think this is the same pick I had back in the preseason, and that's the Thunder over the Celtics in 6 games. I just like the way this bracket is sort of shaking out. Obviously, things can change, injury, hot and cold stretches, like whatever. But if you're just nailing me down today like we are and doing our sort of last call on these, I'm going to say the Thunder over the Celtics in 6 games. I think that'd be a really interesting series and definitely fun for us to go out to Boston and come back to Oklahoma City and cover a NBA Finals series. But what are you thinking?
Ship me up to Boston, winning it in Boston. I really wonder if you could have a circle of trust with conversation with Mark and Sam. Circle of trust meaning obviously this stays between us. In case you didn't know what circle of trust meant, it's an exercise I like to do. It's a circle of trust. I use it a lot with my friends in our group chats. We say some things that whatever. Would it be sweeter for a couple Bostonians? I think that's what they're called. To win it in Boston over the Celtics, or would they rather win it in OKC? That's a tough question. I think they'd just rather win it, period. If they played it in Lawton or if they played it in Oklahoma City or they played it in Boston, I think that they'd love to win it. But it's very interesting of what the emotions would be like to win it there for guys who are rooted, of course, by nature in Boston. It's another interesting storyline. I'm going to give my finals prediction at the end of the week. But I will say, I think that you're on the right track with your matchup, probably. Ultimately, Michael, though, last thoughts to put a bow on all of this. We've done our rankings. We've done our, series to watch. Fair to say that this bracket, so long as Golden State takes care of business on Tuesday, broke really good for the Thunder.
Yeah, not absolutely perfectly. I mean, I would have liked to see the Wolves, the Nuggets in the second round play against each other just because of travel reasons for us, but that's selfish. But I'd say this bracket broke extremely well, assuming that the Warriors take care of business and go on to play the Rockets, because you keep the Lakers and the Warriors on the opposite side of the bracket, and you only have to face one of Denver or the Clippers going into the second round. So I think that it broke really well, especially if you can hopefully, ideally, like we're talking about, get sort of that first round series bye, whether it be against the Grizzlies, Dallas, or Sacramento.
Yeah, I think so too. I think as long as the Warriors win Tuesday, you just got to take this as a big win, because look, the challenges are going to happen. You're going to have to play somebody good. Yeah. And as far as the second round goes, not that the Thunder are for sure going to win the second round if they win the first round, but it's more manageable than like saying, okay, here's Luka, Reeves, and LeBron. Here you go. It's your toughest matchup that you're going to see in the second round. So like that could have happened. The fact that didn't happen, I think you have to take your wins there for OKC. Basically, Michael, it's all out in front of OKC. It's all out in front of the Thunder to go take care of business and show why they were the best team all regular season long. Michael, what do you got cooking up on Let's Talk Thunder?
Speaking of which, I'm dropping a video hopefully pretty soon about why the Thunder, their case is like potentially the best regular season team that we've seen. I mean, they haven't won 73 games, but there's still some metrics out there that make you at least ask the question. So that's what I'm going to pose, is just like, here's the case for the Thunder. What do you think? And other than that, I dropped a Hartenstein and J-Dub video about their sort of championship chemistry as a two-man game. But a lot of fun stuff, a lot of fun pods between you and I going to the playoffs that I think a lot of people can look forward to. But definitely check out my channel if you like video breakdowns and stuff like that.
Go check out Let's Talk Thunder. We'll be back again to talk about what will be the first round, game 1 in hand, previewing the rest of the series, adjustments, takeaways, what to watch for, everything. It's going to be so much fun. Make sure you subscribe to Let's Talk Thunder on YouTube. Subscribe to Locked On Thunder as well, wherever you get your podcast from, because we have a lot of podcasts coming out this week. So make sure you're ready for them all. And until next time, be good and be good to one another.